I'm Gina Hamilton, owner and operator of Black Barn Blossoms.
Hey everybody, welcome to the glamorous life of a flower farm.
Kendall is planting our first flower for the flower farm. People always ask us, how did you get started in the flower farming business? So I thought I'd share my story with you today. It actually happened quite spontaneously on my part, but let me just give you a little bit of a backstory first. So it all started back in 2016 after my husband Hank retired from the military. We purchased 75 acres in a rural county and moved to the country. It felt quite like Green Acres to me. But we absolutely fell in love with it. Even though the land had been neglected and it was all grown over, we got to work. The first 2 years we spent converting a big hay barn into our house, which is an upcoming episode you're not going to want to miss. So after a few years, we've lived here, and I told Hank, I'm like, there's got to be something that we can use this land for. We have all this property. There's got to be a way we can make the land give back to us. So fast forward to 2020. Just before the pandemic hit. I had no idea what was coming. I was scrolling through Instagram one morning and I came across a page called Floret Flower Farm. And oh my goodness, I fell in love with Erin's page. I saw all the beautiful flowers and a light went off in my head. Ding, ding, ding. And I told Hank, I'm like, I want to start a flower farm. And he's like, okay, how do we do it? Well, I had no idea, right? So I started doing some research that day. And that afternoon, I came across this ad, and it was from our local extension office, and it said, local flower farmer to give class on how to become a flower farm. I could not believe it, right? So I told Hank, I'm like, we're gonna try to get into this and go if it's not too late. So I quickly emailed the lady, and I was like, please, 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 can we get in this class? So we got up the next morning, drove to the extension office, and there we were in the class. We were the youngest people there, let me just say that, but that's okay. It was a wonderful class. I learned so much, and we were able to meet some really great friends, Serena and Jonathan from Peach Creek Blooms, and they just became my mentors and walked me through the whole process. So the first step was figuring out where on our property did I want to have this said flower farm. Well, the first obvious thing was water source. You gotta have a water source. Luckily for us, the previous owner was a vegetable gardener, so we had the whole garden area set up with the water source there. So that was the obvious choice. So then we built 8 4-foot by 30-foot raised beds. The reason why we opted for raised beds is because we had our soil tested and it did need to be amended. It had sat, nothing had been done to it. It was kind of compacted. So at this point, you know, it's mid-April and I wanted to jump into the season. So we went ahead and just opted for raised beds. So we built the raised beds and then we purchased compost. To me, for the first season was the best decision for us because I didn't really know too much about flower farming. I had taken the one class and I'd done research, but getting the compost was just, it was a no-brainer for me. So we filled the beds and we applied drip tubing, and I made a list of the flowers that I wanted to grow, and a lot of it was trial and error. I didn't really know if I could grow flowers, much less which kind to grow, so I leaned a lot on my mentor for that. And we live in a very sunny area in Florida, so we had a very successful first season. I quickly learned I was not growing enough flowers to keep up with the demand because everyone loves fresh, locally grown flowers. After I discovered that I needed more flowers, it was moving along into the end of the season. It was hot and the flowers, you know, they were doing great, but there was a lot of things that I didn't do was succession plant enough. And we'll talk about that in another episode as well. That's super important to a flower farm, is succession planting, so you never run out of supply. But I had this big idea that I wanted to plant a pumpkin patch for the fall because I was really excited and I thought, oh, everybody loves pumpkins. So I started asking around and all the local farmers said, you can't grow pumpkins here. We just don't have the weather suited for it. But, you know, I was determined to prove them wrong. So we made 3 80-foot rows and I planted pumpkins. This was probably mid-July. Man, they did so great. They were growing. I even had like small pumpkins already and I was just so excited and I was like, see, I knew I could do it. I knew I could grow pumpkins. Well, then came Hurricane Sally. That day I'll never forget. I was outside in my rain boots. I think we got like 20 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. My husband, bless his heart, he was out there with the backhoe. We were trying to save the pumpkin patch because it was getting flooded. So we're out here in the middle of Hurricane Sally.
The pumpkin patch is underwater. The garden is underwater. Water is flowing in here like crazy.
I lost probably half of the patch that day to the flood. And then following that, the days of August moved in and it was just worms got on the pumpkins and it was a disaster. I ended up really just having to tear the whole pumpkin patch out.
So a lot of time, money, hard work down the drain.
So I learned a lesson to stay in my lane. I mean, I knew I could grow flowers, beautiful flowers that everyone loved. So why not use that area to grow more flowers? So that's what I did. So this season, I've turned the pumpkin patch, and I still call it the pumpkin patch. It's so funny. But I turned the pumpkin patch into more beds for flowers, and I've actually added 2 more 80-foot beds. And I'm also excited that I've added a whole field for sunflowers in a different area, and I've got a long 200-foot wildflower / U-pick for my customers to enjoy this year. Another awesome thing that we're gonna do this year on the farm is I'm going to host flower bar nights. We've turned this pole barn that I'm standing in into a flower studio. I have workspace on one side. I've added a flower cooler on that side as well. And then this side will be where I'll set up the flower bar, where people can come and enjoy flower bar, make their own bouquets, and walk around the farm and just enjoy the flowers. So I've learned that I absolutely love flower farming. So let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or any particular subjects you'd like for me to address in the future. And also drop in the comments what zone you're in. I am in zone 8B. We have a really long growing season here, but I know some of my friends up north have a little bit shorter season. So it'd be interesting to know where you're at. So if you're considering starting a flower farm, or maybe you just want to be a hobby farmer and grow flowers to enjoy for yourself, the advice I would give you is to start small for one, and also do your research. Know what grows well in your area. So I'm super excited to share with you guys all the things that bloom this year. You're just gonna love all the flowers. And in future episodes, I'll get into more of what we're growing, how I grow it, why I've chosen that particular flower for that particular area. And we'll show you some clips of the flower bar nights and all the happenings here on the farm. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll know when the new episode comes out. And you guys, bloom where you're planted.